so the kidding rates will be pretty accurate without being flushed through. And
we're out here about to go throw some hay for the girls. It has some sleet coming down. Not sure if we're gonna get any snow or not, but just a little moisture. I don't think we're gonna get too much, thankfully. We just have to make it to Friday. It's gonna rise up to 50 degrees, so a nice sunny day of 50-degree weather. But we're out here about to go see all the ladies and check on the billies as well. We don't want to bring any brown bales out here because a lot of it would go to waste with them laying in it, pooping on it, and sleeping in it. So we bring these square bales and you get minimum waste, and you only see a little bit on the ground, versus if I brought a round bale out here and saw probably about at least a 30% wastage or more, probably more like 50 with the moisture coming down, because once it gets wet and saturated, they really don't want to eat it. Well, the square bales are a little more expensive, but I'm not wasting any of it, so by the end of it I'm probably saving some money by feeding square bales versus round bales.
Gotta bust some ice on this stock tank as well. It looks like the first one we passed is frozen over, so I imagine this one that the goats are in is probably the same. It looks like some of them are over here, so we'll probably start with busting that ice. Sometimes when it gets cold, they decide to not drink, and then before they actually get a chance to get a drink, it freezes over. So before you know it, they've gone 2 or 3 days without any liquids in them. So, oh, it looks like part of it actually is unfrozen, so I think we'll be all right. I'll just leave it be. The dogs are over here.
Tasty.
Looks like all the girls were right on the other side of that creek bed over there, or in the creek bed, so they're probably trying to get up out of the wind. It's pretty chilly and got some sleet coming down, so we drove the truck along the fence line, just threw 3 square bales spread out over the fence.
Makes it nice and spaced out so you don't have any fighting, and they can't just guard the whole pile from one or the other, so everyone has a chance to get some in their bellies. But you can see this ice on their backs, but that's good because you can open up these guard hairs and see that her cashmere underneath is dry, so she's dry enough. It's still cold out here, but that's keeping her warm and not too cold, so she's still insulating even though she is shivering. Well, that's why we make sure to feed them a little extra hay or grain or whatever you feed when the weather's like this, just because they're gonna shiver, they're gonna burn calories even just standing around. So it's good to make sure you have plenty of food out for them. But when you see that insulation layer of ice or anything like that, that's just the body doing its job, and the hair providing like a blanket of protection from the moisture. They look horrible, they look like drowned rats, but they still are feeling a lot better than they look. Let's see. Not you.
So in one of my previous videos we talked about the Premier 1 netting. This is kind of when it gets weak. You can see it kind of starting to sag a little bit, but I don't know if you guys can hear that. It's starting to get a good coat of ice on there, and whenever this ice starts hitting it is when it starts to get way down. So it's just something to keep an eye out for. We'll keep an eye on it. And we got about 3 inches of mixed precipitation last night. Here's a small little field that we planted with a rye wheat mix, and you can hear the ice when you crunch on the ground. But on the actual ground, like the caliche road that we live on and all the bare dirt spots, there's about 2 inches of solid packed ice. but we're about to head over. We done taking care of all the animals up by the house, and we're about to head over to check the goat herds up the road and see how they force through the night. Planted this mix in a lot of different areas. Whatever growth we had a good solid 5-6 inches of growth before we had that first storm in December, and it pretty much freeze burned everything back down to the ground. And between then and last week, we had about, and finally started coming back. We had a little bit of moisture, I don't know, about 2 weeks ago or so, and it started coming back a little bit. And I imagine with this freeze, it's probably going to set it back the same amount of time. So the weather always plays effect, so always have a backup plan. Have hay or have some alfalfa pellets or something like that, because stuff like this will happen and then you'll be SOL.
The most important animals on the farm here need a little hay.
We had to improvise and move the horses over to the stock tank because our water lines have been froze for a few days, and the 150 gallon water reservoir that they've been drinking from, they exhausted it, so we had to move them over here. We don't have their round bale feeder over here, so we're throwing them some square bales. They've got their blankets on. The little one here, he had a thicker winter coat than all of them, but hopefully it's supposed to warm up later on today about to 40 degrees, and we can get the lines de-thawed and get the horses moved back. But for the meantime, they're going to be getting us some more square bales.
One square bale.
That's our stay tough, timeless fence post. There you go. And that's what these poles are here for. We're going to put a brace in there. We've got another 2 down there, and then we're going to do the same thing with that high tensile wire. This fence is off, that's why she's able to do that. But this will be the next project. We'll be working on this the next couple days. It'll look very similar to this one over here. I do need to add, that pole's been moving a little bit, so I'm gonna cover that up with a fire resistant blanket, and I might pull this over a little bit, strap it over, and then I'll weld my brace in there, and that'll keep it from moving anymore. And then we'll have this here, and then we'll have 3 pastures to rotate through. Brita, I don't know if you guys watched The Last Kingdom on Netflix. The character of Brita, that's kind of how that character of that horse is. We got Diesel over here. Tyler's taking off their blanket, his blanket. And then we got Lady over here.
There you go.
You guys might see a lot more Lady here in the future. She's going to be having a foal here in a few months. Tyler's very excited about that.
3 months, like 25 days.
3 months, 25 days is the intel we just got. And then Shuli's back there. He's a little miniature, and he's their bodyguard. We threw some more hay out for the girls. This is the morning after this big part of the storm, I guess. We got all that ice. We talked about that earlier, but just take a quick second to talk about, I guess, survival of the fittest and learning from past seasons. So one thing we used to do is we used to try and kid during this time of year, and a lot of people do, to try and hit that high time of the market come Easter time, you know, March, April, May time, so they can get their kids born January, early February, and get them to the market by March, April, May, you know, time frame. But the problem with that is, if you don't have barns, or you raise your goats out on pasture like we do, and they kid out on pasture with no shelter, then the odds of those kids dying, not staying warm, are pretty high. So we went ahead and learned that the best time to kid for our area is that March time. Maybe we won't hit the market high and sell those market kids to the market, but at least we will be able to have a higher percentage of weaning rates. So the money that we save in kids that don't die in the cold is the money that we make up for not getting kids to the market in that high time of the market by March. We'll end up selling those kids in the fall. So that's something to think about. One of those things that you kind of just, you learn. You know, a lot of people tell you have your kids early, December, January, February, but sometimes that's not very feasible, especially if they're out here in the woods with no shelter and no heat, nothing but the trees and brush to keep them warm. Most of these nannies are coming into their 3rd trimester of pregnancy. Some of them might still be in their 2nd trimester. They got probably bred on the 2nd heat cycle. They probably weren't all in exact sync with each other, but some of them are coming into the 3rd trimester, which is why we're out here throwing them a little hay. Days back to back, we usually don't do that, but we just want to make sure that they're getting enough nutrition through this ice storm. We did not flush these nannies this year. We had them on pasture during breeding time, and they kind of, whatever the pasture provided is what the nutrition they got. Just rolled out about half a bale of hay for the cows. They're happy. Starting to rain again, but I'm sure they'll have it picked up pretty good by the time it starts getting any wetter.